Dr. Lisa Morgan stood at the observation window of the UNHS Nightingale, watching the stars streak by. The massive hospital ship glided through space, its white hull gleaming with the red cross markings that had protected medical vessels for over a century. She rubbed her tired eyes, thinking about the distress call that had pulled them away from their regular patrol route. The ship's intercom crackled. "Dr. Morgan to the bridge." Captain Peter Howard's voice was calm, but carried an edge of concern that made her frown. She straightened her white medical uniform and headed for the lift. The Nightingale's bridge buzzed with quiet activity. Screens displayed vital signs of thousands of patients currently under care. The ship carried 2,000 medical personnel and 5,000 patients from 17 different species. It was humanity's pride, a symbol of their dedication to healing and peace. "Doctor, take a look at this." Captain Howard pointed to the main screen. A distress signal pulsed steadily, originating from Colony 7, a neutral settlement on the edge of known space. The captain's weathered face looked troubled. "They're reporting some kind of plague. Death rate is climbing fast." Lisa studied the medical data scrolling across her tablet. "These symptoms don't match any known disease patterns in our database." She enlarged several charts, her concern growing. "The infection rate is impossibly high." The captain shifted uncomfortably. "We're close to Krevac space. Their patrols have been aggressive lately. This is a medical emergency, Peter. We can't ignore it because we're afraid of the neighborhood bullies." Lisa's voice was firm. The Krevac's empire had been pushing boundaries lately, but even they respected medical neutrality. It was one of the few universal laws that all spacefaring races followed. "Agreed." The captain nodded. "Helm, set course for Colony 7. Maximum safe speed." Lisa returned to the medical deck, where her team was already preparing. Nurse Amy Mitchell was organizing supplies, her quick movements efficient after years of emergency response work. "How bad is it?" she asked, seeing Lisa's expression. "Bad enough that we're diverting the largest hospital ship in the fleet." Lisa began reviewing patient files, planning how to reorganize the wards to make room for new arrivals. "We need to be ready for anything." In the ship's massive medical bay, rows of beds stretched into the distance. Patients of all species rested under the care of human doctors and nurses. A young Centaurian child waved at Lisa as she passed. She smiled, remembering why she had chosen this life. The Nightingale was more than a ship. It was proof that humanity's first instinct was to heal, not harm. Engineer John Carter's voice came over her personal comm. "Doctor, we've modified the quarantine fields like you asked. We can convert Cargo Bay 3 into an isolation ward in under an hour." "Good work, John." Lisa checked the time. "How long until we reach the colony?" 18 hours at current speed, he replied. Lisa spent the next hours preparing her staff. The Nightingale had handled plague outbreaks before, but something about this one felt different. The infection patterns were too precise, too targeted. She pushed the thought away, focusing on what she could control. In her office, Lisa recorded her log entry. Ship's date 21/57/183. UNHS Nightingale responding to medical emergency at Colony 7. Preparing for possible pandemic protocols. She paused, then added, "Note to review unusual infection patterns once immediate crisis is contained." The ship's night cycle began, lighting dimming to simulate evening. Lisa walked through the quiet wards, checking on patients. The regular beeping of medical monitors created a peaceful rhythm. Outside the viewports, stars streaked past as the massive hospital ship raced to answer another call for help. She stopped at a viewport, watching the star trails. 20 years of medical service, and she had never lost her sense of wonder at traveling between the stars. Humanity had found its place among the galactic community not through force of arms, but through healing hands. A soft alarm chimed, marking the halfway point to their destination. Lisa squared her shoulders and headed back to prepare for their arrival. She had no way of knowing that in less than 48 hours, everything would change. The Nightingale, pride of Earth's medical fleet, was sailing into darkness, carrying its mission of mercy toward a destiny that would shake the galaxy. Colony 7 came into view, a small blue-green world wrapped in wispy clouds. The Nightingale sensors swept the planet's surface, mapping outbreak hotspots. Lysa frowned at the display. The infection clusters formed an almost perfect geometric pattern across the main settlement areas. "This isn't natural," Nurse Amy said, pointing to the data. "Look at the spread pattern. It's too organized." She pulled up another chart showing patient symptoms. And these symptoms, they're targeting specific genetic markers. Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. A design virus. She enlarged the genetic analysis. The more she looked, the more certain she became. Someone had engineered this plague. Captain Howard's voice came over the comm. "Dr. Morgan, we're picking up some unusual debris in orbit. Looks military grade. Krevac's design. Keep us in standard approach." Lisa replied, "We're a clearly marked medical vessel. Even if they're around, they can't touch us." She turned to her staff. "Prepare for immediate deployment. Whatever's going on down there, there are people who need our help." The Nightingale's shuttle bay came alive with activity. Medical teams loaded supplies and equipment into dropships. Lisa supervised the preparation of mobile quarantine units, her mind racing through possibilities. If this was indeed an engineered virus, they weren't just dealing with a medical emergency, they were looking at a potential war crime. The first shuttles launched toward the surface. Lisa watched from the command center as they descended through the atmosphere. The colony's main medical center served as their landing zone. Local authorities had cleared the area, and the first images from the ground showed hundreds of patients waiting for help. "These readings can't be right," Amy said, checking her instruments. "The virus is mutating faster than anything I've ever seen. But the mutations are structured, like it's following a program." Lisa accessed the colony's medical database. The first cases had appeared exactly 3 days after a Krevac's trade ship had visited the planet. She cross-referenced the ship's registry with known Krevac's vessels. The data came back classified. "Dr. Morgan," Engineer John called out, "we're having trouble with the communications array. Something's interfering with our signals to Earth Command." Before Lisa could respond, new alerts flashed across her screen. The virus was changing again, but this time she saw something in its structure that made her blood run cold. Hidden in the genetic code was a signature, a maker's mark. She had seen it before in classified briefings about Krevac's biological warfare programs. "This is a test," she whispered. "They're testing a bioweapon on civilians." The realization hit her medical team hard. They had walked into the middle of something much bigger than a natural outbreak. But their duty remained the same, to help those in need, regardless of how they got sick. Lisa sent her findings through their increasingly unreliable comlink to Earth. The message was heavily encrypted, marked for military intelligence. She knew it might be their only chance to expose what was happening here. "New patients are showing different symptoms," Amy reported. "The virus is adapting to our treatments almost instantly." She looked up from her datapad. It's like it's learning. The medical bay filled with more patients every hour. Lisa's team worked tirelessly, trying to stay ahead of the rapidly evolving virus. But for every breakthrough they made, the disease seemed to find a new way to attack. From the observation window, Lisa noticed something odd about the stars. Some of them seemed to shimmer and move in ways that stars shouldn't. She thought about the debris they had found in orbit, about the classified Krevac ship, about the perfectly designed virus. The pieces were coming together to form a picture she didn't want to see, but there was no time to dwell on it. More shuttles were arriving with patients, and her people needed direction. Whatever game the Krevacs were playing, the Nightingale would do what it was built to do: heal the sick and save lives. She didn't know it yet, but high above the planet, the stars were indeed moving. And they weren't stars at all. The shimmer in space turned into something much worse. 5 Krevac's warships appeared around the Nightingale, their stealth fields dropping like dark curtains. Their angular shapes looked like black knives against the stars, weapons already pointing at the hospital ship. Multiple ships decloaking. The bridge crew's warning echoed through the ship's comm system. Captain Howard rushed to the command center, his face grim. Battle stations. Raise shields, but do not power weapons. We are a medical vessel under galactic protection laws. Commander Susan Blake stepped up to the communications array. Her hands moved quickly over the controls as she broadcast on all frequencies. This is the Earth Hospital Ship Nightingale. We are a neutral medical vessel protected under Section 7 of the Galactic Peace Accords. Please acknowledge. The only response was silence. In the medical bay, Lisa worked to keep her patients calm. The ship's artificial gravity swayed slightly as the Nightingale adjusted its position. Through the windows, she could see the Krevac ships moving to surround them completely. "They can't attack us," Amy said, her voice shaking slightly. "It's against every law in space. Even the Krevacs follow the medical ship rules." She helped a young alien child back into bed, trying to smile reassuringly. The ship's intercom crackled again. "Dr. Morgan to the bridge immediately." Captain Howard's voice was tight with tension. When Lisa reached the bridge, she found the command crew staring at their screens in disbelief. The Krevac ships had moved even closer, their weapons charging with a visible green glow. "They're demanding we hand over all our research data on the virus," Commander Blake explained. "They say we're interfering with their territorial interests." Lisa stepped forward. "This is a crime against sentient life. They tested a biological weapon on civilians. We have proof." She looked at the hostile ships through the main viewport. "They're trying to cover their tracks." The Kravac's flagship sent another message. The alien script scrolled across the main screen, translated by the ship's computers. The message was simple: "Surrender your data or be destroyed." "We have 5,000 patients aboard," Captain Howard responded. "This is a hospital ship. Stand down your weapons immediately." The next few moments stretched like hours. Lisa thought about all the people in her care, humans and aliens alike, all trusting in the protection that a medical ship was supposed to have. The Red Cross on their hull had kept them safe through countless conflicts. No one had dared attack a hospital ship in over 50 years. Commander Blake tried one more time. "This is your final warning. Any attack on a medical vessel is a Class 1 war crime under galactic law. Stand down your weapons." The Krevac ships began to move, but instead of backing away, they tightened their formation. Green energy gathered at their weapon ports. "They're really going to do it," Lisa whispered. She turned to Captain Howard. "We have to get our patients out." The captain nodded grimly. "All hands, begin emergency evacuation procedures. Medical staff, prepare patients for immediate transfer. Launch all available escape pods." The Nightingale's corridors filled with controlled chaos as medical teams rushed to move their most critical patients. Lisa ran back toward the medical bay, her mind racing through triage protocols they had never expected to use. Through the ship's windows, she could see the green glow of Kravac's weapons getting brighter. The enemy ships looked like circling predators, patient in their cruelty. "This isn't supposed to happen," Amy said as she helped prep patients for evacuation. "They can't do this. We're healers, not soldiers." Lisa looked at her friend, at the medical bay full of vulnerable patients, at the Red Cross emblem that had always meant safety. In that moment, she understood something terrible. The Krevacs hadn't come to threaten them or to steal data. They had come to erase all evidence of their crime, and they didn't plan to leave any witnesses. The first shot came without warning. Green energy lanced out from the lead Krevac ship, striking the Nightingale's shields. The barrier flickered blue, struggling to absorb the impact. The hospital ship shuddered, and emergency alarms blared through every corridor. "Shields at 60%. Engineer John's voice cracked over the comm. They weren't designed for this kind of attack. Lisa grabbed a wall handle as the ship rocked again. Around her, medical staff worked desperately to move patients into escape pods. Many were too sick to move, connected to life support systems that couldn't be quickly disconnected. Priority to children and critical care patients, Lisa ordered, helping lift a young Centaurian into an escape pod. The child's mother, still weak from the virus, reached out to hold her daughter's hand one last time before the pod sealed. Security Officer Kevin Phillips activated every camera on the ship, recording the attack. "The galaxy needs to see this," he said, his hand steady as he worked. "They need to know what the Krevacs did here." Another blast hit them. The shields flickered and partial failure warnings flashed across every screen. The Nightingale's hull groaned under the assault. She was a healer, not a warrior, and her defenses were crumbling. In the pediatric ward, Amy worked with tears in her eyes, trying to keep her young patients calm as she moved them to safety. "Look at me," she told the frightened human boy. "We're going on a little trip in a special pod. Like an adventure." The ship's internal gravity wavered as more shots struck home. Medical equipment crashed to the floor. Backup power systems struggled to keep life support running in the critical care units. Main shields failing. John's warning barely finished before a direct hit shook the entire ship. Hull breach warnings screamed across the command screens. Lisa ran through her hospital, the place that had been her home for so many years. She saw her staff showing incredible courage. Doctors carrying patients twice their size, nurses singing softly to scared children as they sealed them into escape pods, orderlies forming human chains to pass medical supplies to evacuation points. Breach on Deck 7. The announcement cut through the chaos. Emergency containment failing. Captain Howard's voice remained steady on the comm. "All hands, abandon ship. This is not a drill. Get to the escape pods. Medical staff, enact emergency patient evacuation protocol Delta." The Krevac ships pressed their attack, firing methodically at the helpless hospital ship. Their weapons targeted the evacuation points, destroying escape pods as they launched. They weren't just attacking the ship, they were hunting survivors. "They're blocking our distress calls," Commander Blake reported, her hands flying over the communications panel. "But I got a burst transmission out before they started jamming. Earth will know what happened here." Lisa reached the main medical bay just as another hit rocked the ship. The lights flickered and died, replaced by dim emergency lighting. Through the viewport, she watched a piece of the Nightingale's white hull tear away, the Red Cross emblem splitting apart like a broken promise. "Doctor," Amy called out. She was trapped behind a fallen beam, still trying to protect a group of patients. Lisa ran to help, but another explosion threw her against a wall. When she looked up, that entire section of the medical bay was gone, exposed to space. The ship was dying around them. Lisa saw her staff still at their posts, still trying to save lives even as their own ebbed away. She saw humans and aliens working together, helping each other, showing the best of what sentient life could be even in its darkest moment. Through the broken hull, the stars looked cold and distant. The Krevac ships continued their methodical destruction, erasing all evidence of their crimes. But they didn't understand what they were really doing. They thought they were destroying the helpless hospital ship. Instead, they were waking something that had slept for far too long. Communications Officer Daniel Wright worked frantically at his station as the Nightingale broke apart around him. His fingers flew across the controls while emergency lighting cast red shadows across his face. The ship's main communications array was destroyed, but he had a backup plan. "Almost there," he muttered, connecting cables from his personal tablet to the ship's secondary transmitter. The device wasn't meant for deep space communication, but he had modified it over the past hour. All around him, the bridge crew fought to keep the dying ship together just a little longer. Another explosion rocked the ship. Through the cracks in the hull, he could see escape pods being blown apart by Krevac's weapons. Each flash of green light meant more lives lost, more witnesses silenced. Daniel's hands shook with rage, but he kept working. "The file's too big," he said, looking at the collected sensor data. "It won't transmit fast enough." The young officer started deleting his personal files to make room. Pictures of his family, his training records, everything had to go. He needed every bit of space for what mattered now. Lisa stumbled onto the bridge, her medical uniform stained with blood from helping the wounded. "Daniel, how much longer?" she asked, helping a wounded crew member into a chair. "Almost ready. I'm combining everything. Sensor logs, medical data about the virus, recordings of the attack." He looked up at her. The truth has to get out. Someone has to know what they did here. The ship's structure groaned as another section tore away. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut, but they were running out of ship to save. Captain Howard's voice came over the failing intercom system, ordering the last of the crew to the remaining escape pods. "Done," Daniel shouted. The message was ready, compressed, encoded, and prepared for transmission. But the Krevac's jamming was still too strong. They needed something else, something the enemy wasn't watching for. Lisa looked at the medical readouts still functioning on her tablet. "The quarantine beacons," she said suddenly. "They're still broadcasting on the emergency medical frequency. The Krevacs can't jam those. It's against galactic law." Daniel's eyes lit up. He quickly rerouted his transmission through the quarantine network. The medical beacons were meant for warning ships away from plague zones, but now they would carry the truth to Earth. "Sending now," he said, starting the transmission. The progress bar moved slowly across his screen. "Come on, come on." A massive blast rocked the bridge. Warning lights flashed as more hull breaches were detected. The ship was coming apart faster now, its structure finally giving way under the relentless attack. "How much longer?" Lisa asked, helping another wounded crew member. 30 seconds, Daniel replied, watching the progress bar. "We just need 30 more seconds." The Krevac ships continued their assault, their weapons cutting through what remained of the once proud hospital ship. But they didn't notice the small signal piggybacking on the medical emergency frequency, spreading out across space like ripples in a pond. 20 seconds, Daniel counted down. The air was getting thin now as life support failed. 15 seconds. The bridge viewport cracked, a spider web of lines threading across its surface. Lisa helped the last of the wounded crew toward the emergency exit. "Daniel, we have to go." 10 seconds, he said, refusing to move. Almost there. The final explosion came just as the progress bar reached completion. Daniel's last act was to hit the transmit button before the bridge disappeared in a flash of green light. But it was enough. The message was already racing through space, carrying with it everything the Krevacs had tried to hide. The UNHS Nightingale died protecting her patients and crew until the very end. But in her final moments, she had become something else, a witness to war crimes, a testament to human courage, and a call to arms that would echo across the galaxy. Admiral Mary Cooper stood in Earth's Defense Command Center, watching the message from the Nightingale play for the third time. The room was silent except for the recorded sounds of destruction and the calm voice of Daniel Wright, explaining what they had discovered. The young officer's final transmission had reached Earth through the medical emergency network, carrying with it proof of unthinkable crimes. "Play the visual logs again," she ordered. The main screen showed the Krevac ships appearing around the hospital ship, their weapons firing without warning or mercy. The Nightingale's destruction played out in horrible detail, captured by security officer Phillips's cameras until the very end. Lieutenant Christopher Davis rushed into the command center, holding a data tablet. "Admiral, we've confirmed the medical data in the transmission. The virus was definitely engineered by the Krevacs. They were testing a targeted bioweapon on the colony." Mary's hands gripped the command rail until her knuckles turned white. The evidence was clear. The Krevacs had not only tested weapons on innocent civilians, but they had also destroyed a clearly marked hospital ship to cover their tracks. 5,000 patients, 2,000 medical personnel, all gone. "What are your orders, Admiral?" her staff asked. They waited, watching their commander's face as she studied the tactical displays showing Krevac's fleet movements across the sector. Mary thought about the oaths Earth had taken 50 years ago. After the last Great War, They had chosen peace. They had turned their warships into hospitals and research vessels. They had sworn to heal rather than harm. The Krevac had seen this as weakness. She pressed a button on her command console. "This is Admiral Cooper. Authorization code Cooper 79 Delta Echo." She paused, looking at the faces of her crew. "Activate the war fleet." Deep beneath the oceans of Earth, hidden bunkers came to life. In asteroid bases scattered throughout the solar system, lights turned on in long dark chambers. The war fleet had slept for 50 years, maintained in secret, while humanity showed a peaceful face to the galaxy. Multiple ships reporting in. Lieutenant Davis announced as signals began flooding the command screens. Dreadnought-class vessels responding from Luna Base, carrier groups activating in the Kuiper Belt, Mars Defense Force reporting ready status. The massive hidden doors of Earth's shipyards opened for the first time in half a century. Ships that no one knew existed rose from their secret berths, not the white hulls of hospital ships, but the dark gray of vessels built for war. "Send the Nightingale's final transmission to every world in the galaxy," Mary ordered. "Show them what the Krevacs did. Show them why we had no choice but to wake up our fleet." The response from Earth's allies was immediate. The attack on a hospital ship had crossed a line that no civilized species could ignore. Support poured in from a dozen worlds, all demanding justice for the Nightingale. "Admiral," Davis called out, his voice tight with controlled anger. "We've located the Krevac's fleet that attacked the Nightingale. They're still in the sector, probably looking for escape pods." Mary's eyes hardened. 50 years ago, Earth had chosen peace. They had hidden away their weapons and turned their military might toward healing. But they had never forgotten how to fight. The Krevacs were about to learn that showing mercy was not the same as being weak. "Plot an intercept course," she commanded, "and send word to all ships. No mercy for war criminals." She looked one last time at the image of the destroyed hospital ship. The Nightingale was a symbol of peace, but now she'll be remembered as something else, the reason humanity went to war again. The war fleet rose from its long slumber, engines burning bright against the dark of space. Earth was awake, and this time, peace would come only after justice had been served. Commander Laura Bennett stood on the bridge of the Earth warship Retribution, watching as her fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The Krevac ships that had destroyed the Nightingale appeared on her tactical display, still searching the debris field for survivors to eliminate. "They haven't noticed us yet," her tactical officer reported. The Earth ships had emerged from FTL using stealth systems that had been developed in secret over 50 years of peace. "We have complete tactical surprise." Laura looked at the enemy ships through the main viewport. They were the same vessels from the Nightingale's final transmission, their hulls still bearing the scorch marks from their own weapons fire. They had no idea that Earth's response was already here. "All ships, battle formation," she ordered. The fleet moved with perfect precision, surrounding the Krevac's vessels just as they had surrounded the hospital ship. "Weapons free. Remember the Nightingale." The first shots from the Earth fleet struck before the Krevacs even knew they were there. Advanced targeting systems that had been refined for decades in secret testing grounds proved devastatingly effective. 2 Krevac ships exploded instantly, their shields useless against weapons they didn't know existed. Enemy vessels attempting to engage FTL drives, the tactical officer reported. The remaining Krevac ships tried to flee, but found themselves trapped by gravity nets hidden in the debris field. "No escape for war criminals," Laura said quietly. "Send the message we prepared." On every Krevac ship, screens came to life, showing the final moments of the Nightingale. They watched their own attack on the hospital ship, saw the doctors and nurses trying to save patients, even as the ship broke apart. The message was clear. This was justice, not just revenge. The battle was over in minutes. Earth's hidden fleet had been built with one purpose: to protect humanity if peace ever failed. Now it proved that 50 years of preparation had not been wasted. But Laura's mission wasn't finished. As the last Krevac ship fell silent, rescue ships moved in to search for survivors from the Nightingale. They found escape pods hidden in the debris field, their occupants still alive thanks to the sacrifice of the medical staff who had saved them. Message from Earth Command, her communications officer announced. The Kravac's empire is in chaos. When our broadcast of the Nightingale's destruction reached their civilian populations, there were mass protests. Their military leadership is falling apart. Laura nodded. The truth had done what weapons alone could not. The Krevac's people had not known what their leaders had done, and they were as horrified as everyone else in the galaxy. New orders coming in, the officer continued. We're to proceed to Colony 7 with medical supplies and support teams. Earth is sending a new hospital ship to help the victims of the bioweapon attack. 6 months later, Laura stood in the observation lounge of the newest vessel in Earth's fleet. The ship was larger than the Nightingale had been, its white hull gleaming in the starlight. The Red Cross emblem was proudly displayed. But now it was protected by escort ships that made sure no one would ever threaten a hospital ship again. The UNHS Lisa Morgan is ready for her maiden voyage, the ship's captain reported. They had named the new hospital ship after the brave doctor who had died trying to save her patients. Laura watched as the Lisa Morgan began her first mission. Earth had returned to its path of healing, but now everyone understood that kindness was not weakness. The war fleet remained vigilant, protecting those who dedicated their lives to saving others. In the end, the Krevacs had been right about one thing. Attacking the Nightingale had changed everything. But not in the way they had expected. They had thought they were destroying evidence of their crimes. Instead, they had awakened humanity's strength and reminded the galaxy why hospital ships were sacred. Peace returned, stronger than before, built on the understanding that Earth would always protect its healers. The Nightingale was gone, but her legacy lived on in every medical ship that now sailed safely among the stars.